Hey guys, Laura here. I'm going to go through this Leaving Cert history essay with you today from the 2017 paper. It's from the Pursuit of Sovereignty and the Impact of Partition topic, and it's the question about the impact of World War II on Ireland. Now I'm going to go through different parts of the essay. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. So I do recommend you have a quick read through the entire essay before we start so that it's in your head a little bit in its entirety. Hopefully it would make things a little bit clearer for you. Now there will be a full version of the essay with notes on all of the paragraphs on Studyclix afterwards if you'd like more detail on that. So let's get into what we're going to talk about today. Firstly, I want to dive in a bit deeper into the actual question itself. You have to make your choice on your Leaving Cert history essay quite quickly, so you need to be sure that you're happy with your choice and that you're clear on all the things that you have to do. So what should you look out for? Always look out for that little word AND. It tells you straight away that there are at least two parts to the question. So in this instance, you must speak about both North and South. You probably know at this stage that sometimes you're asked or you're given the choice and or on, all sorts of essays. But here you must speak about both. So make sure of that. Obviously, the World War II stands out to me there. So I'm going to speak about what happened during World War II and the impact that it had on Ireland. But I do need to give some context as well and some background. What was going on in Ireland, North and South before World War II, because those events do have a bearing on what happens during the war. So make sure you do give some background. What's crucial during your exam is to keep referring back to the impact. Really common mistake, guys, is that people talk about, well, this happened in the South during the war, and then this happened, and then this happened. And then this happened in the North, and then this happened in the North. But what was the impact of those things? What did all of those things increase or decrease or highlight? Or did they contribute to growing tensions, or did they improve tensions? Did they change relationships? What was the effect or the impact of those events? And if you do all of those things, then you are aware of the question that you're being asked on the day, and you're not just throwing down all the information that you have. Before we get in specifically to the essay, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about that. When the examiners are setting about correcting your essays, these are the things that they are told to think about and look out for. So there's a phrase that is in practically every chunk of information there. And that's this phrase, the treatment of the set question. This is for your OE, your overall evaluation. It's worth 40 marks out of the 100. So you need to be sure that you are answering the question that's asked on the day and not the question that you either wish was asked or that you think was asked. So if you follow all of my previous tips, then you will be treating the set question and you'll be treating it well. So make sure of that. That is crucial. The other thing that stands out to me is the detailed learning, accurate, substantial. Are you giving accurate, substantial statistics, evidence, quotes, or are you just giving the bare minimum, the few bullet points that you have in your head? Or is there more? Is there a bit more evidence you can give to help back up the historical argument or debate that you are putting forward? So keep those two things in your head as you're writing your own answers and as you're reading all the sample answers that you come across. So now let's look specifically at this sample answer and its treatment of the set question. So the introduction is there in front of you. I really think this introduction needs to set the scene in relation to, why are there two states, the state of Northern Ireland and the state of the south of Ireland? Because it's very important, because the impact of World War II is in so many ways vastly different, north and south. So why was that? It was because one was still connected to the UK and one wasn't. And that needs to be made a bit clearer in this particular introduction. People often ask, what's my first sentence? How do I start? So this introduction has a nice opening sentence, just kind of summarising the question, that World War II had a major impact. It wasn't that, nothing happened. So now I'm going to spend 3 or 4 pages proving that major impact. So that's nice opening sentence to this particular essay. One small thing that stood out to me here is this sentence that I've highlighted. And it's a sentence that I had to read a couple of times to see what exactly the person was saying. So my advice is, I know this isn't an English essay, but you do still have to be clear. So watch your phrasing. Sometimes your point can get a bit lost in the commas Sometimes you can try to put something into a really well structured sentence, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So you don't want the examiner to have to work too hard to see what you're getting at. So if it can be said in two shorter, simpler sentences, go with it. Or practice using those commas a little bit more effectively than they're being used there. Just be careful of that. Moving on now to different parts of the essay, I'm going to firstly look at paragraphs 1 and 2. Straight away looking at them there in front of you, you can see that they're quite substantial and they're quite meaty. What I like about them is that the first paragraph is very clearly going to be about censorship. This was one of the policies in the South during World War II. So now I'm going to talk about it in this paragraph. I'm going to give detail on it, and then I'm going to talk about the impact of it. The paragraph gives good, accurate reasons, and the layout of how the censorship worked is clearly explained in this paragraph. So I'm talking about censorship and I'm going to explain it in more detail. Lovely. At the end of this paragraph, it talks about censorship also banned all references to the tens of thousands of Irishmen fighting in the Allied army. Now, the impact of censorship is kind of implied in that question. So therefore, people didn't know what was happening to those tens of thousands of Irishmen specifically as a result of censorship. So I would like this paragraph to use the words of the set question a bit more. The impact of censorship meant that the lives of these tens of thousands of men and their experiences wasn't being reported home clearly and regularly. Just make it that little bit clearer. Because all of the detail is there, but back to the set question all the time. And then good layout in this particular essay, good thought process, good planning. Now I'm talking about a new topic. So now this paragraph is going to talk about rationing. And I'm going to give detail on rationing, and I'm going to talk about the impact of that rationing. But remember, even if you have really excellent information on each of your topics, your essays should have a thread running through them. So try and connect your paragraphs in some way. So in this instance, it could have been something as simple as another factor during World War II in the South was rationing, or something like that. You can find your own language there, but link your paragraphs a little bit more than is done here, because the information and the content is really good and it's just a little bit more linking. I'm going to move down now here to these two paragraphs 4 and 5. Again, you can see they're pretty meaty looking. It seems that there was a really good planning process that went into this particular essay. It's well structured, it makes sense chronologically, and it's well expressed. There's lots of really good specific facts and statistics to help back up the comment that I'm talking about here. This paragraph is about the war in the North and how the Northern economy experienced a boom. And you can see, when you're talking about something like that, you need numbers, you need facts and figures. 140, 1200, 15,000. Okay, so big impact. In the last bit of this paragraph, the evidence of the impact is kind of implied. That the Northern workers saw a wage increase, large numbers of unemployed workers from the South travel to the North, so this person is aware of the question. They are talking about the effect of this economic boom, that Northern people got more wages and that people from the South travelled to the North. So it is implied. It could be made that little bit more explicit, but it is there. I've already mentioned about the paragraphs being linked, and that will be something that will be very easily polished up on in this essay, and it would really make it absolutely outstanding, because it's a very, very good essay. I love to see the use of quotes in essays. It can be lovely to help back up your argument using quotes from documents and people of the time, etc., etc. I'm always amazed when I see quotes like that at the bottom of that paragraph. Tommy Henderson, the Unionist MP, saying we are as backward as they are in the wilds of South Africa. It's not necessarily something you would or should hear nowadays. But again, in context, that quote helps this person's argument. Lovely language and awareness of the question there in the middle of that paragraph. However, in a move which would prove costly. So therefore, this was the move and it would prove costly. The impact would come at a great cost. I'm aware of the question. I'm talking about the impact. And I'm not just using the words of the question all the time, but I am aware of it. The final thing, obviously, I'm going to speak about, folks, is the conclusion. This is a really, really, really good essay. And I was reading this conclusion hoping that it would finish really strong. And it does. It's an excellent conclusion. It sums up all of the points that have been made on the previous pages. That's not an easy thing to do. Summarising, what you've spent 45, 50 minutes writing about in a couple of sentences and analysing them, summing up the argument that you've made. It's a specific skill. I urge you to practice it. It's also excellent because it mentions the wider context of the welfare state and how that only served to deepen the divide between North and South. So overall, a really great example of a conclusion. That brings me to the end, guys, of my breakdown of this particular Leaving Cert essay, which I hope you have found very helpful. And of course, I want to remind you that the full essay is analysed on Studyclix if you'd like to have a look at some of the paragraphs that I didn't specifically speak about today. And I hope that I will get a chance to talk to you all again. Bye bye.